Hey there, I'm Beth Connors, a midwife and mom of two, but also your birth bestie. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into everything you need to feel confident, prepared, and in control, from baby bump to delivery room, from practical tips to personal stories. We'll cover it all so you know exactly what to expect every step of the way. Let's get into it. Welcome back to episode 15 of Your Birth Bestie podcast. Last week, we talked about how to choose which hospital to give birth at, but for those of you who have reached out with questions and concerns about limited access to good facilities or care providers, like only having one solid option near you, or those of you who have friends and family with less than ideal birth experiences in those hospitals local to you, I felt this episode is a perfect follow-up to reassure you that if this is the case for you, this does not mean that you're doomed to follow in their footsteps. Because truly the most important thing is getting what you want, being somewhere you feel safe, and having the best birth experience possible, right? And it all comes down to developing your personal autonomy. This is every mom's goal, to get that dream birth that you've been thinking about. So if the information in this episode resonates with you, I've created a 60-minute webinar that expands on all this information because I'm totally obsessed with birth and autonomy. It is a completely free class about how to demand the birth that you deserve, and I'll be sharing 5 tips to advocating for your dream hospital birth. It is a live class on Zoom on Tuesday, July 18th at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and I know it will be just so helpful for you as you are planning your success in an autonomous hospital birth. I'll be talking about what you're legally allowed to say no to in the hospital, how to get what you want without upsetting your doctor if that's a concern, how to stay in control no matter what, and how to prepare to love your birth no matter what happens. Go to bethconnors.com/webinar to save your spot. There is a link in the show notes as well. And when you sign up, you will be also given access to 2 bonus PDF resources. One is my guide to saying no, to empower you to know that you have the rights to decline literally anything when you're at the hospital. And the other is a guide to your legal rights in birth, which explains the importance of informed consent and shared decision-making. The replay will also be sent to everyone who registers the morning of July 19th, so if you can't make it live, I completely understand. I am very much looking forward to getting this powerful information in your hands soon, and I hope you will join me. So today I wanted to talk about what the heck it means to live an autonomous life and to have an autonomous birth, and also why it should ultimately be your number one goal. I will talk about practical ways to start creating your own personal autonomy and consciously live with more authenticity. So today, let's talk about developing your autonomy during your pregnancy as part of your birth preparation. I'm going to give you the big picture, but also leave you with the practical steps and some tips. So I want to start by saying that I believe that having an autonomous birth is one of the best goals for your birth, but first wanted to answer a question that I get all the time, one that doesn't have an obvious answer. And that is, what does it even mean to have an autonomous birth? And really, an autonomous birth is the best kind of birth. It's a birth where you, and only you, have complete control over what happens to you and your baby. You're confident, you're in charge, and you're respected as the ultimate authority of your birth, your body, and your baby. An autonomous birth isn't dependent on any specific style of giving birth, and I want you to hear me loud and clear. You do not need to have a home birth to have an autonomous birth. You can have an autonomous birth in any setting with any care provider, and it could be any type of birth from a waterbirth at home to a planned cesarean. It really matters less about your physical location and your care provider that you choose, and matters more about you and what's going on in your mind and with your body. It's when you're informed and aware of all of your options, and when you're free to make intuitive decisions without coercion. Really, when you're free to literally choose anything you want for you and your baby. An autonomous birth will give you the best chance at avoiding a traumatic experience and the best chance at starting your motherhood journey with a deep sense of calm. Autonomous birth is intuitive birth. It's birth without guilt. It's birth without shame. It's birth without pressure or coercion. And it's the best kind of birth there is. I believe that developing your autonomy in preparation for birth is the most underrated piece of the birth prep puzzle. Not only will doing so transform how you give birth, but it will transform how you mother your children, and honestly, it'll transform every aspect of your entire life. Most people think that birth is just a physical event. Some people understand you need to prepare your mind as well, but very few people understand the importance of truly developing your autonomy, your sense of self, your confidence, and the role that this all has in your birth experience. So, why is developing autonomy so important for birth? When you reclaim your inherent power as an autonomous woman, you're able to make decisions that align with your core beliefs and align with your intuition without caring about who it offends or, what policy has to say about it. When you live autonomously, you can live authentically with zero shame and zero guilt. When you experience an autonomous birth, your chance of having a traumatic experience drops to almost zero, no matter the health outcome of you and your baby. So, if you're feeling a little anxious about tuning into your intuition and being able to stand up for yourself during your birth, or maybe you're finding it hard to trust that you're making the right choices, or hard to trust that you won't throw your preferences out the window when a provider abuses their power, then this is such a key step for you, and I'm going to give you some practical tools in just a minute. And with a little effort, day after day, you'll be able to hear your intuition loud and clear and allow your authentic self to really develop. You'll be able to say no to the things that don't serve you, like unnecessary interventions, and yes to the birth of your dreams, yes to the things that you really want from your birth, but maybe you've been too nervous to actually go for them. I know you're ready to stop relying on other people's approval and to make your birth a perfect representation of your desires, and I know you're ready to take responsibility for your birth. So let's get into actually how to do it. Okay, so I will walk you through my framework for setting yourself up for an autonomous birth. And the first thing you need to learn is how to think critically. And lucky for you, if you've been around a while, you've probably already heard me talk about the steps to the rainbow method of decision making. I want you to think critically about pregnancy and about birth because you can't really make autonomous decisions for yourself without this basic foundation. And then you need to start building your confidence so you actually feel comfortable standing up for yourself. Remember that this is your birth and we don't want anybody else to get in the way of that. The next thing you need is to surround yourself with people that truly understand that your desires come first. And I want you to set the bar so high for the people that you allow into your birth space. You also need to start owning your actions, for better or worse, and I promise it's not as scary as it seems. It is called radical responsibility, and it really is so empowering. Then you need to learn about your legal rights during birth and how policy shouldn't dictate the care that you receive. And then you'll practice advocating for yourself. Literally practicing no, and practice speaking your truth. And after you follow this framework, you'll be ready for an autonomous birth. Now, let's break down each of those so I can give you some practical tips. So, you've already been a pro at using your critical thinking skills when it comes to pregnancy and birth, and you already have the rainbow steps to making autonomous and informed decisions. But if you're new here, let me quick break down the rainbow method of decision making because it really is just so important. It is like the brain method that you might have heard about because most other birth workers use this mnemonic, but in my opinion, it makes way more sense to follow the rainbow method, and this is why. So rainbow starts for questioning the risks and research first, then understanding the alternatives to a certain intervention that's maybe recommended by your doctor, decide what your intuition is saying to you, what happens then if you do nothing, and then after all of that is considered, consider the benefits to the intervention, if there's any legal obligation, and then decide what decision is best for you. It's different than first considering the benefits of an intervention, which is the part of the brain method, the first B, because the bias of agreeing to the intervention without considering first the risks, alternatives, your intuition, and doing nothing, it can kind of make you agree to something subconsciously that you're not comfortable with. So remember to follow these rainbow steps. So let's just reiterate that you can't make autonomous decisions for yourself in pregnancy and birth without this foundation. The most important parts of the rainbow formula when it comes to autonomy are tuning into your intuition and honoring what your intuition is telling you. And also examining if there's any outside pressure or obligation before you make a decision. Remember, you always need to start out by asking yourself, is this a normal variation or truly a complication needing intervention? I want to be clear that you don't need to be asking your care providers questions like this, though you totally can. But to have an autonomous birth, you should be turning to yourself with these questions first and foremost. You are here to cultivate your personal autonomy, not to learn how to be a good patient to your care provider. This is your birth, and you call the shots. Okay, so now let's dive into some practical ways that you can grow your confidence leading up to your birth. And I want to just say that if you've never been one to stand up for what you want, you're not going to magically just be that way during birth, right? The more practice you have standing up for yourself, the more confidence you will have, and the easier it'll be to make autonomous choices free from coercion. The first thing I want you to do is build your confidence to be hyper honest with yourself and with others. When you're talking to someone about yourself and about your birth, speak with authenticity. And if it feels like you can't be honest or shouldn't tell the truth, ask yourself why. If you live your life authentically and unapologetically, there's literally nothing to hide. And something that's related to this that I want to take a second to talk about is something that typically comes up when I'm coaching moms to speak their truth and to live authentically. For example, moms will tell me that it's easier if they just lie and tell people that they are planning to get an epidural instead of being honest about their plans to birth as naturally as possible. Or a mom has told me before that when people ask them how much weight they've gained, they'll just make up a number so they don't have to hear someone shame them about how much weight they've gained. And my response to these types of statements is that you are doing yourself an injustice. They may seem like little white lies, and by all means, if this is what you're comfortable with, keep doing you. But I really encourage you to ask yourself why you feel the need to put on a front for someone else. The goal here is to be absolutely radiating authenticity, your real, raw, unfiltered self. And I don't want you to feel like you have to keep yourself hidden for fear of other people's opinions or fear of confrontation or fear of shame. And if you think that's not the case and you think you're just setting boundaries or something, think again, because if you really didn't care what anyone thinks, if you could be fully secure in yourself and in your choices, then no amount of shame from other people will make you feel ashamed, and no amount of confrontation would stop you from speaking your truth. With authenticity comes such a deep level of calm, and like I said, you can keep doing you, by all means, but I just want you to ask yourself why. Okay, so let's jump back into another way that you can grow your confidence during your pregnancy in preparation for your birth. I want you to completely eliminate your imposter syndrome. All of that comparing yourself to other people that you do, the thoughts like, maybe I'm not strong enough for a natural birth, or maybe my pain tolerance isn't as high as theirs, or why couldn't my body give birth vaginally last time? Why is my body broken? All of those thoughts are not invited to your next birth. It's easy to get into our own heads and to compare ourselves to what we think other people are like. But remember, everyone has moments like these. So when you're feeling like a fraud, I want you to take a second to remember the things in your life that you're proud of. Your kindness, the way you treat your friends, how good of a mother you are now or how good of a mother you are going to be, and the way that you act towards strangers. Those are life's true successes. And you've already heard all about my belief that your thoughts determine your reality. So if you believe that you are worthy and capable, you are. It is really as simple as that. So now let's talk about surrounding yourself with people that support you as the authority of your birth. And for now, let's consider your wider community. It's incredibly important to surround yourself with people that respect your desires and boundaries and who believe that you're capable of the birth that you want. And this absolutely extends past the people who are attending your birth. I'm talking like your coworkers, your friend circles, all of that. You need to know that your desires come first. And not only is that okay to acknowledge, but it's also a huge part of showing up in your life autonomously. And a quick reminder, just because someone's family or somebody has been your friend for 20 years doesn't mean they're going to be part of your support system leading up to your birth. And to be brutally honest, sometimes they make the worst support people. So give yourself permission to put some space between yourself and others to help yourself get into the right headspace leading into your birth. It's also important to realize that your support system extends beyond the people that you know in real life. You need to decide what kind of birth you want beyond an autonomous one. So, a VBAC or a free birth or a home birth or whatever, and find other moms who have walked the path before you. So if you're shooting for a home birth, find yourself a community. If you want a hospital birth with no intervention, surround yourself with stories of women who have done it before you. And always remember, don't listen to anyone that doesn't support your role as the ultimate authority of your birth. And at the end of the day, you need to live with the choices that you make for yourself and your baby. Nobody else does. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Birth Bestie podcast. If you'd like to hear more about owning your actions, learning your legal rights, advocating for yourself, and so much more, these topics I will be diving more into during my upcoming free live webinar on Tuesday, July 18th at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. When you register, take a screenshot and share it to your Instagram stories, tagging me at BethConnors_CNM, and I would love to celebrate you for joining me. I am so excited to bring this information to you and show you that you already have exactly what you need to give birth to your baby. It's sometimes just easy to forget after a lifetime of being told to turn to other people for all of your answers. And I'm going to tell you now that you're probably not going to wake up tomorrow living your most autonomous and authentic life, but with a little effort, day after day, authenticity and autonomy will become your norm. I feel so honored to help guide you through all of this, and I believe in you, and I trust that you know what's best for yourself and for your baby, and I hope you have an amazing week. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you next Tuesday.